Ladies and gentlemen, as the world of broadcasting continues to evolve, and while we are still talking, it is evolving at its own pace. We are witnessing a monumental shift in the way content is created and delivered. From cloud based tools to IP driven workflows, remote TV productions are no longer the future, they are the present. And today we are delving into the very core of these innovations. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, it is now time to begin a highly insightful session titled Advancements in Remote TV Productions.
Well, today's session is very interesting. As we know, the theme of the expo is modern technologies. uh, AI is the focus. Uh, the current topic that we're going to discuss also indulge into a lot of new technologies, which is actually a buzzword, which could be probably the reality in days to come or years to come. It's still evolving, and as they say, in the current scenario, the technology is changing every minute. What is valid right now will be obsolete in next minute as well. So we have to keep evolving ourselves in terms of keeping ourselves abreast. So I have a very distinguished panel with me, experts. We've been chatting since few days, and there's lots which is happening. So the whole idea was to abreast you with the same technological changes and the challenges and how to monetize the whole thing, because ultimately it's all about money and the content. So, what flow we have decided that each one of us, the panelists, will have a short window to present their credential on slides, which will be about 7 to 8 minutes or maximum 10 minutes. We will have questions. So, we will get over by 4 slides and then we'll open the floor to people. So, in order to kickstart, I will ask Subodh.
Most of you as a DD side, you know TVU as a backpack, as an acquisition side. But TVU is not only a backpack, TVU is the entire ecosystem on which we can run entire channel on the cloud, okay, on TVU platforms. So for the acquisition part, yes, we have edge devices. But based on other than edge devices, we can also take in your any IP input format, okay, or any SDI baseband. So we can take into our ecosystem on the cloud. Okay, on the cloud we have different functionality which we can do. We can do a cloud switching, cloud playout, cloud editing, graphics. Although we have an integration with our partners with the graphics and all these things, and then the distribution part. Again, we can distribute to a number of locations over a cloud, over a baseband, output on the output side. So just a brief how it looks like the inputs can be any feed which is there. Then the functionality which is all on the based on the cloud. Okay, you can do video switching, audio switching, ingesting, AI based ingesting. I will talk much little bit about that. Scheduling, graphics, all these things, and the third party integration as well, and then the distribution. And all is possible because we are not a software on the cloud. We are a microservices based company. So based on that, what we tell to a customer, you tell us what are your requirements are. We will do the integration. We do the changes and customization based on that because it's easy for us because we have microservices on the cloud. This is one of the product which I want to mention, which is recently we bought up in Indian region also. So this can be used for multi-cam production. Okay, like right now I'm in a conference, 4 cameras are set up here. So you can connect the 4 cameras to this TVU backpack device. It's all 5G compatible. So you can just transmit to any location wherever the TVU servers are there, or even to TVU cloud on the cloud ecosystem. And also you have a switching mode into that. You don't need a full-fledged switcher onto the what you need to carry with the for the conference. You can do a switching from this backpack itself only, connecting any keyboard with that. This type of special event you don't need to buy anything because it's a cloud based. It can be event based. So you just have to spin the cloud, use it whatever you want to use it, and next day you can shut it down. So the cost saving is a huge. Okay, and the things which you can do is not like thinkable, like the 400 lives at the same time. Okay, which is a big achievement for them, and then now they are saying we are planning for the bigger one in the next time. So similarly, we have some case studies in India also which we not have the videos, so we are not presenting it, but we are available in booth number A08, so we can talk about the case studies. Okay, like G20 and some with DD also, and some from Pragati Maidan, a lot of events which we did for PM Modi. Okay, so in touch with us so we can tell you more about what TVU has to offer, and I can go through a presentation one to one also. Thank you.
Solutions are more helpful on the sports as well as on the news, because that's where the action is happening. And perfect example is the IPL matches. If you see match ball by ball, if somebody gets out, you see 10 reviews of each ball. You know, uh, understand the commentaries are into regional languages. Somebody's doing Bhojpuri commentary, somebody's doing Marathi. So sitting or the location where the IPL match is happening, it is not feasible to have all the components at the same place. That's where the cloud technology. We'll talk more as we go along. So I'll request Mr. Klaus to probably have his presentation. So that
I have put a slide deck together talking about a little bit about how remote production started and some steps in between and where we are today. So very quickly, remote production is not something new. I mean, we started at Cross Valley already 25 years back now, building the first remote production studio in Germany in one of the tall towers in Frankfurt at the 53rd floor, connecting 4 or 5 cameras remotely to the studio facility of the local public broadcaster over a distance of approximately 10 kilometers. That studio was running for more than 10 years and was producing daily shows and programs fully safe and uninterrupted, a very stable system. It was based on transmitting analog triac signals over dark fiber. So that was a really a technology which was brand new in that time, but which is of course completely outdated today. The next step, 10 years further on in the year 2010, 2011, as an example, the Swedish public broadcaster SVT was rebuilding their whole studio infrastructure, and their idea was to build a centralized control room for all their 5 studios over there, and to build it in such a way that resources can be easily moved and shared between the studios. So it was all based on the concept that all the cameras are connected by dark fiber through a big fiber patch to all existing base stations. And this is not, first of all, a remote production, but the main reason why they did this is because they also had some fixed dark fiber connections to venues around the city of Stockholm. So they could do remote productions from special places 20, 30, 40 kilometers away from the building. And that technology was used for many, many years also to do remote productions. And the difference to the first example is in the time of 2010, fiber transmission was becoming already a de facto standard, and they used digital fiber transmission instead of analog triax conversion. So that was the step from 2000 to 2010. The next big step was coming in 2015. In that year, we introduced our first IP-based camera signal transmission system. So means all the signals from the camera to the base station and back was not transmitted over analog, not over digital video, but over IP. It was a standard 10 gig Ethernet connection between camera and base station. And in the Netherlands, Dutch View Infrastrada got the idea, why not build a complete studio infrastructure built on IP connectivity? Again, first of all, this is not remote production. This is a centralized production with what they called in that time cloud productions, which is, of course, not truly cloud. It was an on-prem, let's say, processing. But what they also added over the time is, again, connections to outside places. So especially Dutch View is in Hilversum, which is suburb of Amsterdam, of the capital of the city. They have especially inside Amsterdam, but also to Rotterdam and to some other major places. They have some high-speed IP connection, and then they can do really freely remote productions with the same infrastructure they use inside the studio. And since this technology, which we call direct IP connection, use fully uncompressed signals between camera and base station, you get the same quality, the same latency for remote productions as if you would do local productions in a studio. That is a really, really big benefit of this technology. Um, the same technology was picked up by Swedish Broadcasting SVT to produce a big major sport event, the so-called FIS Alpine World Cup or World Championship in the north of Sweden. Yes, you can see here in the small map, the event itself is somewhere in the middle of nowhere in the north of Sweden, and the television station was or is in Stockholm. It's approximately 600-kilometer distance between. And this was not a small or light production. This was a really top class, very demanding production. They had in total approximately 100 camera signals to transmit between the two venues. And from the around 150 was really demanding live sport cameras. So even including 13 super slow motion cameras, sometimes 3x, some of them 6x, but also a lot of regular HD cameras. The connection was done over two 100 gig lines between Aare and Stockholm. So this is a really top class, high end event, but needed really high bandwidth. So, and as a next step, an example from the Beijing Olympics in 2022. One of our customers had 5 of our latest native IP cameras in Beijing and was sending the signals from all the 5 cameras down to Hilversum into the NEP production center over there. So they could receive the signals from 5 cameras from Beijing to the other side of the world with a latency of approximately 200 milliseconds up and down. They had another connection to a studio, which was in Amsterdam, something like 20, 30 kilometers away, which was using direct IP. So direct IP, as I told you, is uncompressed, no latency, where the signals coming from Beijing was, of course, compressed. They used JPEG XS compression, which is built inside the camera head. And the signals was sent down to Amsterdam over a redundant IP connection provided by Telstra. So they could really combine signals from Beijing, signals from Amsterdam, to the signals they had already locally in Hilversum. And this is not something light. This is top class production during the Olympics. So that was done with the system by NEP in the Netherlands.
With this, I request Vikas from Vizarti to throw some light on his solutions and some innovations that they are doing.
I have a couple of slides. I am not going to dig very deep into very much into technology, but I'm going to be giving you a very high level overview of what is Vizati, because I think in the industry, Vizati is a known brand for more than 25 years already. But I think people still consider Vizati as a primarily as a graphics company, right? Of course, we are present in almost every region of the world, enabling our customers with great real-time 3D graphics, let it be full frame, lower thirds, stickers, branding, PCR graphics, to XR, virtual sets, video walls, and so on. But Vizarti has transformed a lot over the last 2 or 3 decades that we are into the business. So right now we are definitely catering into the news and entertainment industry, but we have great technologies and solutions for sports, corporate, education, government, and house of worships. Uh, what kind of solutions are we offering there? Right from graphics, as I already mentioned, live production tools, uh, connectivity platforms like NDI is developed and managed by Vizati. It is, our protocol that we are enabling a lot of other technology providers to do remote productions, automation, hybrid events, live production workflows, as I mentioned, also media asset management. And some people actually, do surprise in India that, okay, Vizati is a media asset management company. Yes, of course we are. And we have two great examples right from India. One of them is our very reputed Prasar Bharati itself is using Vizati MAM for almost 5 years now, and Z Entertainment Limited as well. So, we are being watched by almost 4.5 billion people across the world in 92 countries and having 27,000 customers all across the globe. And they are not just broadcasters, but everyone, I would say. Not just bigger companies, but also content creators are utilizing Vizati tools and technologies now. With that short intro about what Vizati is into, and I mean, I think that would make perfect sense now when I talk about remote productions. I mean, where exactly and who exactly are we talking about? So, I would just quickly look at what exactly are we talking about when we say traditional versus remote. So, teams are getting decentralized, and we need to collaborate. Uh, Platforms are changing, connectivities are changing. So we are moving away from SDI or actually using parallelly IP with SDI. Cloud and virtualization is also becoming a need for many reasons. And one of them are very important, I would say, for anyone who is not even planning to move their production or complete production chain into cloud. They also require a DR site, which is, always a better choice to have it on cloud or remote. Uh, Talents at home and cloud multi-site MAM. MAM is one of the, I think, one of the key factors where we need to think about collaboration and for sure remotely, even if you are not planning to bring your complete production chain into cloud or remote production. But MAM is something where if you have decentralized teams, you do need to collaborate and talk about remote productions there. Now, what are the challenges basically? I mean, if we are trying to bring a technology, of course people will ask about what kind of challenges are you addressing. So infrastructure, this is, I think, the biggest challenge when we talk about remote productions. Fear of moving to cloud. How will it happen? How will my connectivity be? Latency and sync, resource coordination. These are some of the areas where Vizati is focusing to solve problems for our customers. So, these are the challenges that our customers are facing, and then we are basically, looking forward to fix and get solutions for them. Remote contribution and monitoring, scalability and cost as well. Because as we start to talk about remote productions, we start to talk about cloud, and cost comes into picture. So while it is important to have a great technology in place, make it efficient, but also cost effective. So how Vizati is helping customers to achieve this is by enabling them with a platform that is basically hosted either in cloud or in a hybrid mode, or it could also be on-prem. It does not necessarily mean to be in cloud. I mean, remote production is not just about cloud, but it also include cloud solutions. So Vizati's live production and cloud specifically is managed and powered by VizNow platform. So this platform allows our uh, users to basically control, manage, run, and turn a channel on within 15 minutes of time. Honestly, this is exactly the amount of time it takes for you if you're running everything in cloud to turn a channel on and start producing. Now, that might sound a bit, unachievable, but this is literally happening. All these technologies are integrated. So, as I mentioned, we do graphics, we do live production in PCR, switching, we do replays, we do MAM, we do automation, integration to newsrooms. And while we are talking about doing it in cloud, we are also able to do it in a hybrid workflow. So all of that is possible on the Bharati platform while you're exploring to create new workflows around cloud or hybrid modes. Now, as I said, yes, it is ready in 15 minutes. Now, do we have an example? I think the most challenging situation for anyone trying to do remote production could be sports. Of course, it will work for news. If it can work for sports, it will work for news. Why? Changing venues. We have one match in one location, the other match in a different location. It could be literally in hours' time, or it could be in days' time.
Now, my fourth guest is from Tata Communication, who is more like an integrator, and he has a different perspective altogether. So, over to you, Ashutosh.
Following three product presentations, I now represent the services side of the industry. So while we celebrate product innovation, we truly strongly empathize with production challenges on the ground and how do we solve them. So my presentation is all about what our experience and our perspective has been working on this technology globally and what we can really expect moving forward. Tata Communications Media is a managed service provider, and we work across live contribution and distribution, content production, as well as the media supply chain. We're very proud of the fact that almost 70% of global top tier sports, we have a role in delivering some element of it. And whether that be baseball in Japan or football in Latin America or cricket in India or kabaddi in India, we're present all over. So we're very proud of that. And I think so should everyone here in India. I want to flip the premise that has been discussed so far about really moving head first into remote production. If production has been working for so long, why do we really need remote production? Is it only for cost efficiency? Is there a demand on the audience side to move into these technologies? And I want to spend a minute talking about how the audience behavior and the consumer behavior is really driving this from the other side. There was an interesting study which spoke about how the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha audience is really spending their time consuming media. And if we see the split here, if we look at the charts broadly representative of how they spend their minutes in media consumption, we see that the younger folks are really spending a bulk of their time, more than half of it in media consumption on interactive formats. This means social media, this means video games, this means consumption on the phone, and having that constant chatter while the live production or the live streaming is going on. So the question really was, can we continue to adopt the cookie cutter approach of one content production fits all? I think that era is done now. And which also means that there is a push from the demand side to really produce different formats of content for different devices, for different formats of consumption. Could be shorter attention spans, speaking to their real language, and moving away from the traditional viewing devices. And I think that a lot of content owners across the globe are already adopting that. In our experience, if we looked at IPL production in India for the last few years, we're now talking 14 languages where we're covering that. We're talking vertical production over the past 2 or 3 years, where the content is fit and native for mobile screens instead of us having to figure out which orientation to watch it in. We're talking about Hangouts. This is where comedians and entertainers are commentating on cricket. And this has been a revolutionary approach because this means that kids who are not very interested in watching a 6 hour or an 8 hour match are now following along. And all of this eventually drives back to production innovation. We're talking the metaverse. So the Super Bowl in the US did something very interesting. They actually superimposed the metaverse so that kids on Nickelodeon could follow along American football. This allowed them to unlock an audience who had never watched American football before, kids who were now following along. And this means that formats are really changing very quickly, which means that production has to evolve to keep pace with this. From our point, as content formats evolve, does the fundamental mantra of success in the media industry really change? Not really. We feel it's still about creating great content. It's still about doing it faster, doing it more efficiently, monetizing it better, and engaging the audience. The kicker here really is that content rights, the cost of content rights and acquisition is really ballooning, which means that the pressure is on the rights holders to really monetize the content better, expand it to cover a lot of the audiences. And this means that there needs to be an adoption of technology. This is where we all come in. This means that we have Gen AI not just in the production, but also in the media supply chain, where we talk about AI ops, which Vikas spoke about. It also means that we have IP-based workflows in cloud in the entire efficiency process, and adopting them is now a no-brainer. So from our point of view, this is where the world of media and high-value live media is really moving. And this comes from the demand side of things, where the audience is expecting faster content production suited to their formats, and also coming in from the supply side, where this provides efficiencies that you cannot afford to forego. Coming to remote production, which is the topic of the day now, the question was, when was remote production? Is it ready now? Was it ready a few years ago? I wanted to focus on, or maybe ask a question back, because I pulled out a press release from our archives where we made this announcement. So I've blanked out the year here. Can anyone hazard a guess what year this might have been? 5 years ago? Very close. This was actually 2018. So remote production as a concept, not it's not just that the time has come, the time has been right for the last 10 years or so. The ecosystem and the technology for remote production has existed for a long time. And as Klaus mentioned, maybe more than 10 years, perhaps 20 or 25 years now. But even in a country like India, reliable low latency transmission, the presence of interoperable equipment and on-site professional services means that this technology has been in vogue. It's really about identifying what use case is production trying to solve by adopting this technology. So I'd like to now give you a few examples of how our experience has been in this whole journey. In about 2015 or 2016, we started working with Formula One, which is the global motorsport, towards enabling remote production for their operations. So they set up a media and technology center in the UK, and they started slowly migrating each production function from the racetrack, where they traveled to 25 plus locations around the year, moving it back to the UK. So they started with the social media team, moved across to operators of PTZ mounted cameras on the racetrack, where operators were now controlling those cameras through joysticks sitting out of the UK. So if you have a race in Brazil or in Australia, we have operators operating cameras live on the track from the UK. Then they started migrating graphics operations. They started migrating more and more. So that was one approach where they kept their main world feed production on the track, but they started moving slowly. In 2018, as I was speaking about, PKL came into being and they had an interesting problem to solve. They expanded the number of teams, they expanded the number of matches. So now we're talking 132 matches across 12 cities and 12 venues. We had double headers every day. And when we're working in that environment where cost is definitely a factor, we did not have the luxury of setting up 12 production kits at 12 venues, 12 sets of crews, constantly moving. That was really not an option. So we went full remote on fiber. This was 7 or 8 years ago. And this was a huge success and a testament to the fact that we could deliver it back then. And where we moved to now, what we're seeing in the pandemic era, where we actually had a customer called Formula E come to us and say, look, we're a younger sibling of Formula One. We may not have the budgets, but we're really pushing the boundaries on the sort of content that we produce. And what that meant was edgier programming, more than 40 plus outputs going out from every race. That meant that they're dealing with operational constraints that we've never heard of. They're running a race in a city center. Think of London, think of Tokyo, think of New York City, and setting up operations, a PCR in the city center. It's extremely challenging. We move most of the operations onto underground parking lots. And that meant that we had to constantly virtualize operations. We had to constantly narrow down what we could bring to the track, skeleton crews on site. And what this also meant is we adopted full IP. So we went to internet based contribution for their main production. And this really changed the game. And this was 3 or 4 years ago. And they're sticking to it. And we're moving now, some of the panelists spoke about, into completely virtualized production, live switching on the cloud. We're talking about ingesting multiple feeds, and we were doing 4 1080i MPEG 4 compression feeds back then. We can do 24 JPEG XS 4K UHD feeds now. And that's really how technology has evolved through Moore's Law, where nothing really is a challenge or a bottleneck. It's all about realizing what problem you want to solve. My time's almost up, but I want to speak about what these barriers or what have been the triggers for most of our customers and partners to adopt remote production, right? I'll skip the graph, but what I'm trying to say here is essentially the time for remote production as a technology has really come because we've seen a lot of adoption globally. We have the early majority who are already adopters, and the S curve for innovation, the benefits or the performance of remote production is really going to come in now because when we have the next phase of adoption is when it's really going to become a no-brainer. So this is we're in that stage where the threshold is going to be crossed and it's going to be a no-brainer on the supply side. But also, as I was mentioning, the adoption will not be driven by a single reason. When we speak about the case studies here in Europe that Vikas just showed us, their reasons for adopting this were very different. Their reasons were a better quality of life for the talent. Their reasons were we don't want to travel for 200 days in a year. We want to stay put. We want to centralize our talent and have the best talent produce the best content week after week. And they also have sustainability goals. When this technology moved to the Americas, there was a different set of advantages to be had. They wanted stronger editorial control. They wanted to really look at the quality of content they were churning out. They wanted to integrate into their overall cloud adoption journey. But is that going to be the same reason why India adopts remote production? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe we have a different set of challenges that we want to solve. For example, PKL. We have hundreds of thousands of events now. We have in Khelo India, we have a university, a youth, a beach, and a mountains or alpine games. And this really means how are we going to tackle producing the same quality of content across all of these formats? How are we going to fit all this production equipment and flyaway kits into these challenging venues? It's going to be very difficult. So this is a picture actually that we took off of the Monaco parking lot, which is an underground parking lot where the PCR and technical center is located for the Formula One race. These are the sorts of challenges we faced for the last 15 years. But now if we move to the mountains, how are we going to ship the equipment, set up an IBC in these locations? And we want to retain the same quality of experience when we were delivering multiple local language feeds. And this challenge is endemic to India because nowhere do we have this sort of heterogeneity in content production. We have 22 official languages and we want to produce and capture each audience. And this means we have to adopt remote because we can't have 20 commentary panels on site. And the consistency of quality as we go deeper into the grassroots. When we try to cover these local leagues, we want a similar quality so that the audience continues to come and watch. And that means that adoption of remote production is going to be taken forward, but for the right reasons. And for that, I just like to end by saying that a partner like Tata Communications is where you start the conversation about what this journey means for you. And this is how we work with our vendors, partners, and customers into realizing this journey over a 5 to 7 year uh, roadmap. And that's my time. Thanks a lot for being here.
For direct to mobile broadcasting. From innovations in mobile device compatibility and chipset development to the critical role of transmission infrastructure and Make in India initiatives, this discussion will spotlight how we can build a resilient, scalable, and self reliant D2M ecosystem. And for that, we are truly honored to have a distinguished set of leaders from across the device, network, and chipset domains who are active
There, I spent almost about 2.5 decades. That's almost about 20, either selling mobile phones or making mobile phones or using mobile phones. And one particular thought that always crossed my mind was, broadcasters across India are all actually looking at having 1 billion screens available to you just like this. And well, if you feel you want 1 billion screens available to you just like this, then the answer is D2M. So I'll probably let Parag tell us more about what he did, what he thought, and when he designed the D2M devices, and then we'll take it ahead from there. Over to you, Parag.
If you look at how it has evolved, we had, you had these towers all over, and they would deliver content to, Yagi antennas, which in childhood we would, put it up and watch them, right? So that architecture was not very suitable for a mobile phone. A phone typically has a antenna which is -5 or -6 dB gain, which is effectively about 25 or 26 dB of link margin. 25 dB in terms of linear scale is what, 1,000 times, no, yeah, 100 times less coverage or less data rates. Then we'll actually look towards how the mobile ecosystem has solved the problem. So the mobile, right from the beginning, cellular architecture actually went about smaller base stations mounted on towers around with a larger deployment. So we actually came up with that idea to be able to put some content right onto the phone. So along with the transmit architecture, we also realized so far broadcasting is actually running in a silo to the telecom network. Telecom networks have advanced so far, and the broadcasters have always been in a silo. Now the it is so if it has become so siloed that a lot of people in the telecom world don't understand that with one single broadcasting stick, you could actually have infinite number of viewers without adding load. So if you look at a lot of the IPL statistics that the streamers put out, they say proudly say we got 100 million viewers, concurrent viewers. So what's great about it? That's a 100-year-old technology, right? But then what happens is, since that is not integrated into the overall OTT architecture, people begin to think that broadcasting itself is dying or decaying. So our idea was to reinvent broadcast, merge it with telecom, and we have been reasonably successful at that in at least the messaging part. So much so that now we have the 3GPP, which is the standardization body, which is already looking at broadcast as one of the toolboxes for 6G. So also, if you look at the current OTT architectures, from a power efficiency perspective or even from a spectrum efficiency effective, they are broken because uh, they when somebody streams IPLs for 100 million concurrent users, you got 100 million streams going to each of those 100 million users, right? So there's a lot of data center power, there's a lot of transcoding, there's a lot of compute power, there's a lot of storage that gets wasted. So in that sense, D2M is a very effective way of actually you know pushing content to mobile devices. And well, somebody might argue and say that this is a very old technology. We had Nokia doing it in 2005 with standards like DVB-H and all of it. But over the last 20 years, uh, the behavior the behavior of people has changed, right? Behavior of this generation has changed. More people watch content on the phone than on, at least in our parts of the world, especially the younger generation, than on the televisions. So that social behavior, along with an architectural changes, including better chipsets and better phones and all of that, have enabled this technology. Thanks, Arvind.
I think, Parag, we've been often talking about it, and I've always asked you what's the cost, and what would it mean to the consumers, so on and so forth. Last you told me is, imagine your phone is on flight mode and you still get all the broadcast. So you could shed some more light on that as well.
Yeah. So today, when you watch content on say on your on your on your mobile phone, typically, there is a data plan associated with it. You are actually carrying a lot of that data, right? So that actually gets charged to the user as the data plans, and your consumption actually goes up drastically. And once you start consuming high quality video, this is an experience that I had during COVID when my children actually started to do online. I had moved out of Bangalore, and I didn't have I didn't have broadband access at home. So I would take these dongles and actually stick them up, and that's how children attended school. So the plans would get over in less than a week, right? And this is not very high quality video. If people start to do a lot of high quality video, the plans actually exhaust, and to a large uh, uh, consumer base in this country, that is not acceptable. So with this plan, with this architecture, your data plans would not become zero, but at least would be substantially reduced, because then you're getting an alternate way of delivering video, especially live video, and also some of those offloaded videos that come along.
So the Korea is the world first in the world to commercialize ATSC 1.0 and the 3.0. But Korea is a little bit different from the India. So Korea is very small, but the India is very huge. Also, Korea people has affordable to pay for the data fee, but so uh, D2M and ATS 3.0 landing in the Korea is not so good, but there is some like a different situation, I think. So I think best country for the D2M is India. S- So because this is a new revolution and the new technologies, and it can be accessed to even the remote area. So that's the reason why our company invests in the D2M technology. I think D2M is not only for the technology, but also for the uh, some like humans oriented, uh, like what's some uh, yeah, I say solutions. So it can be improve the quality of the life, also the happiness index of the family, because with the D2M technology too, D2M technology can provide data free and Wi-Fi free and internet free to the people in the uh, remote areas, the village in the Indias. So I think this is the best solution for the India, because there are a lot of the people living in village areas who cannot afford to access the internet and the Wi-Fi. So that's the reason why our companies invest in this D2M technology, not only for the technology for the people in India.
So I think D2M checkbox is probably all those particular things. Uh, on my right, I have Sanjeev, head of Parag, who's the chief manufacturing officer as well as the executive director for Lava. And I think they took a bold step a couple of months back to actually have faith in the technology, have faith in the founders, and actually design a phone around the D2M ecosystem. Probably I'll ask Sanjeev what really motivated you to actually do that when this is considered as old technology, so on and so forth. But what is the newness that excited you in doing this particular project?
So at Lava, we are into like mobile phone design, manufacturing, and sales. And once I got introduced to this technology by Parag, so it was totally revolutionary for me, because you see, the mobile phone is so much data dependent nowadays. So everything is on internet. So you have to consume data. You have to have good data availability for all the applications. So this was the one thing which was totally breakthrough, where you don't need data, and by directly broadcasting free to air, the users can get content. So what I observed and thought about this was that this will become aspirational for our phone users. So still there are many users in rural areas and who use feature phones, and they don't have access to good network. They don't have good data still available to them, and this will become a boon for them, that they will have direct to air channels where they can get news, they can get other information, they can have entertainment, and without any significant cost. So with this, we started working on integrating this technology in our mobile phones. Definitely with Parag, because this technology is developed by them, and so at present it's in good progress stage. So already we are working on prototypes, and we are integrating the current mobile phone architecture with D2M technology. And I'm sure in next couple of months we will be ready with the working products, and then later on we'll definitely plan to launch them in the market. Thank you.
When you look at technology, specifically, at times you will realize that sometimes things are, you've done way in advance. And the DVBH story, which Parag kind of narrated, I thought it was ahead of its time. What changed, or what is changing, is the availability of the content, and content is in abundance these days. Earlier you were having very lack of content which was not there per se. What is also adding to the content is the content creation piece. I'm not too sure how many of you noticed waves, which happened in Mumbai. So there is great amount of content creation and content industry which is originating from India now. Now where do you kind of consume this content? Smartphones. They are spoiled for choices, right? A smartphone guy can stream anything and everything in this world, because he has access to data networks. Now, when you look at consumers, which is the lowest strata of population, which is feature phone users, that's where the real innovation comes in. So what we are seeing is an opportunity for those rural consumers, who are still using feature phones. For them, they have been media dark. They haven't seen the content. While they aspire, they would watch, kind of movies. And entertainment is something which we all have seen. So those consumers will be watching, movies, going to cinemas, but they have never ever experienced that content on their device, which is like a 2.8-inch or a 2.4-inch screen, while they would definitely love to have that. So that's where the intent for HMD and Nokia comes in, that we want to kind of address that segment specifically. And it's nothing new that we will be doing it. So we were the first ones to bring in UPI application on feature phones. We were the first ones to bring in cloud based streaming to the feature phones. So this probably is an added innovation that comes into that segment of consumers, which will really need this, and it can change their life, is what I feel, Arvind.
So Parag, if you could like let me know, how this application or how this technology can be used by the smartphone users, and then that would be probably very exciting enough for all the broadcasters sitting here, that they have access to about 1 billion screens if you have D2M here. Thanks.
The feature phone would be actually be a end customer for us, right? And then and also we sit in these air conditioned rooms, and our ivory towers, and we have this feeling that everybody has this phone. That's not true. I think that was a eye opening, and it's very revealing for me. Having said that, the original intent of this was for the smartphone. The technology was for the smartphone. Also, as I have started to study, thanks to these two gentlemen here and also Arvind, is that I see three categories in the smartphone, right? You've got an entry level smartphone, you've got a mid segment, and the top of the cloud where people use the iPhones and the Samsungs and all of that, 50,000 plus and all of it. So for the 5,000, 6,000 range smartphones, 5,000 to 10,000 rupee smartphone, they are also very value conscious. They are aspirational in some sense. They need all of this, all the education content and all of it. So that is also an ideal target. If you go to our booth here, we have a bunch of smartphones that are that are already enabled with the with the technology. And this segment between the entry level segment is where I think the maximum benefit is accrued to the user. Of course, for a higher end segment, um, uh, broadcasting actually brings in a very different value proposition. For the low end segment, it actually brings in value for money. But for the high end, it brings better user experience. Broadcast networks, unlike cellular networks, are constant quality networks, which means your quality is not variable. It is at the edge of the coverage, you'll still get the same quality as you would get below the TV tower, right? Whereas in a phone, it's a best effort network, in the sense that on an average, you measure spectral efficiency on an average. Here, it is always the spectral efficiency is measured at the edge of the network. That being the case, there are benefits to the higher end segment for the smartphone in terms of latency. A lot of times you watch OTT, uh, and somebody is watching linear TV, especially these large matches. You already know something has happened because the OTT is about 40 seconds late, 40 to 45 seconds late. So this is an additional advantage that comes as a better UX, and also you can get and push higher quality, video through this. Imagine you start to push 4K video across the current networks, right? What happens, right? You won't get that thing, largely also because not all phones will be in the coverage area that can receive 4x. You don't have enough SNR to do that. So while the feature phone is a very exciting market for from an inclusion perspective, to bring up people up, and like Gautam said, make the media dark, underserved areas light up, there is a significant benefit to quality and to cost, for the smartphone users. And very often, like I began, sorry, I'll just take a minute more. Uh, the current OTT architectures, or our current video consumption, is pull based, which means you go looking in YouTube, or you go looking in your favorite OTT app, and look for some content that you like, and then you pull that content. So that pull actually is enabled by a whole bunch of CDNs behind it, right? So when you say watch Geo Hotstar on your phone, maybe the CDN that is serving you comes not away from Mumbai, but their main data center, but somewhere close to you. Now, with D2M, it is possible to actually convert that pull to a push. A push architecture is what is extending the CDN, not just at the edge, but right onto the phone. And as these gentlemen will tell you, the price of memory drops faster than the price of compute on the phone. Your phone itself can become a CDN. So that also brings us to the theme of what BS this year is about AI, right? Most abused word, but you could have machine learning that actually pushes content based on the fact that 10% of the content that is viewed is that is created is viewed 90% of the time. So the likelihood that if you watch one particular series, you'll watch the next episode of the series is very high, right? So you if you use that statistic, and if you use that principle, you do what's done in computer architectures, which is caching. So you cache more and more closer to the user. As you cache closer to the user, even the OTT user experience goes up, and that the ideal user base for that is a smartphone or even a laptop. And we have collaborated with Intel to create a laptop that already has a D2M technology in it. So a laptop, or a smartphone, or a feature phone, any one of them can actually become a target D2M device.
Coming to you, Gautam, I know in your career, the fact that we worked together for some time, you've worn various hats of being a product manager, marketing manager, GTM manager. And I'm sure one of the complaints that you've got most of the times is there's a buffering on the content. So, with what Parag is saying and what I hear from Sanjeev, how does that help you in actually improving your devices from a buffering standpoint and from a standpoint of cost, bringing down the memory size on the device?
The consumer will either blame the network or blame the device. At most of the times, they'll blame the network, but it could be a problem with the device as well, because the device doesn't have the sufficient resources to kind of play that video. So clearly, from that standpoint, when you have a technology like D2M, it really enhances the consumer experience. With a low memory, I am able to, avoid the buffering and give you that relevant consumer experience. Imagine you're watching a match, and I'm sure you would have seen this in real time. That you're watching it on your phone or your laptop, and your father is watching it on the TV. Let's say on a Tata Sky, you will see that his commentary is much ahead of you, right? So you're missing out on the real time viewing of a cricket match, a live match, irrespective whether it is cricket or football. You're missing out on that, and buffering kind of adds to it, right? So if there is no buffering, you are watching it real time. And in my previous session, somebody was talking about the latency being reduced to 600 milliseconds. So that's where it really helps and enhances the consumer experience. And I think ultimately consumer is the king and he wants the right experience. And if D2M can deliver it, why not?
I think one thing which will never change is your father will be ahead of you and know much more than you actually know. So I think Eric touched a very important thing that D2M will bring happiness. Now, probably I'm going to throw this question to Parag, that what could be the use cases which could actually bring happiness?
I think also this is the first time probably there's going to be reverse osmosis of technologies, right? So the feature phones probably would adopt first, and then maybe it'll go back up to. Usually it comes top down. This is going bottom up. Potential to do that. We're not there yet, but that would happen. I think while we're focused a lot on entertainment, it's also there's a lot of there's a big public use case which is education, and that I think is probably one of the biggest use cases that is good for even for feature phones as well as for for any device. So imagine children having access to good content, curated education, right? One of the advantages of a feature from that perspective is you don't have access to all kinds of content. Sometimes you want curated content to go through to people. So this is another very good use case, I think, a strategic use case for us. There are other use cases also of of the D2M technology that probably are not useful for broadcasters, but very important as we've seen the geopolitics going on right now. Uh, Positioning and location becomes very important. So today we are dependent on satellites and sometimes on foreign satellites for our location and navigation and timing. Practically, not many of you know, but probably the timing runs the economy, right? All high frequency trading and all of that actually happens based on timestamps that come from GPS. So this is an alternate technology also to be able to provide also because deep indoor it can penetrate deep indoors given the physics of the spectrum. You could also have terrestrial based backup for satellite navigation and stuff like that. So there are a lot of other public use cases other than just just entertainment.
So I think I'll go over to you, Gautam. If you were to superimpose what Parag is saying, what is that your devices could promise in the days to come, both feature and smart? And I think while the adoption at feature phone levels, in at least in our mindset, is much faster, how do you see the adoption happening in smartphones?
See, again, it's a no-brainer. When you have a technology that is so compelling that it will ultimately reduce your data packets and data bills, specifically, it ultimately means that consumers is going to love it. So clearly from our standpoint, from a smartphone's perspective, uh, the choices which the consumer will be slightly wider. Obviously, feature phones, will be slightly restricted. Curated content, relevant, consumers and relevant content can be given to them. But clearly, one thing which I think Parag was also mentioning was the SOS alerts, which I think cuts across both smart and feature. So that's something which we would definitely want to implement. Imagine any emergency kind of hitting any place. It could be an earthquake. The first thing that gets impacted is the mobility, right? With broadcast, you can at least reach out to the consumers in those areas and communicate with them. So that's very, very critical. And I think while the feature set will get crafted in the time to come, what is available on feature and smart. But I think ultimately the beneficiary will be both. So smartphone may be slightly more advanced, but feature phones kind of equally there, maybe at 80%, 90% of smartphone level.
I think this brings me to a small little question both for Sanjeev and Gautam. Gautam, you're the devices guy, and devices is what you see. Services are all at the back end. With whatever we're saying, you could reduce memory, you could reduce, you could actually make the experience great by way of broadcasting, so on and so forth. So, are we actually talking about a segment category evolving between the feature phone and the expensive smartphones today, which actually take the consumer on a much better experience cycle?
Absolutely. So there are different target groups. So a feature phone consumer will probably need a very limited set of content and consumption accordingly. And on the extreme, you have the smartphones, which is consuming the massive content. But there is a segment again which is straight in between. For example, he doesn't use Uber apps, he doesn't use all the delivery applications. He's happy with his entertainment and consumption of the content. So for them, you can create a segment which is right in between a feature phone and a smartphone. Definitely there is a scope there.
So I really agree on that because T2M feature phone is not only the feature phone because there is a lot of the contents delivering to the rural areas, to the peoples, to the young peoples in village areas. So as you said, we are the world first T2M, the feature phone development company, and the actually designed in Korea and the made in India. Was the embedded chip is based on the Shankar Labs, the powerful chipset. There is the Indian chipset. So our D2M feature phone is a combination of the India, Korea, and India again. So that's the reason why I'm totally agree about the T2M feature phone is smarter than the smartphone. So I want to say our feature phone uh, in the India, like the young people's young the students can enjoy our feature phone with a small screen size to be educated the school class. So I think the young people, anybody in India, they can become so the future leaders. So I think our T2M feature phone can bring the equal opportunity to the everyone in the India. So I wanted to see as soon as possible.
Thanks, all my colleagues here. But I've always felt we talk from an angle where we're in love with what we've done, but the real use case lies with the consumer. So probably I'd like to open the floor to any questions, and we have about 15 minutes to answer questions. So if there's a mic, could we have some questions from the audience?
There are about 25 million kids playing cricket in this country, aged between 8 and 19, and about 55 million all sports combined together. And in cricket, I know that there are hardly about 3,000 accredited coaches. So even if you take 1:100, coaches trainee ratio, you're talking about 250,000 coaches need, and we are at 3,000. So I think there is a huge problem which can be solved through D2M in sports from a coaching, player training perspective, and from a fitness perspective.
Yeah, I think that's why I said public will give you more insights, and probably Parag, you have a new use case.
Yeah, I know. I think in Stadia applications are also one of the starting things that we have seen, not just in India, but we have got requests from all over the world. And then the whenever you watch a match, a lot of times you're not if you're behind, you're not able to watch. Because of congestion, you're not able to watch stuff on the phone. This is a good way of probably first delivering there, and then like Ramki said, I don't know. I mean, there are a lot of other use cases that'll turn out. We are just a this is just a video distribution platform, so and it kind of democratizes the video distribution in some sense. So the use cases can come on top of it.
Your guys were still working on getting the devices out in place, smaller chips. You all had a dongle on top, which was cumbersome. So, how far down the road are you with the device manufacturers? That's one, to get just a chip in, rather than the dongle, which is jutting out, which makes it cumbersome. That's one. And secondly, when do you start getting to market? How much time frame do you have?
So I think the fact that we've got these two guys with brands who are actually building phones, they are better at what you saw probably was a prototype, right? Engineering prototypes. So as engineers, we tend to have clunky stuff. That's also the reason why the designers actually have to get in. We now have, I mean, Gautam and Sanjeev should probably answer that question on how far we are. But I think this is going to be kind of time to the infrastructure build out. As the infrastructure gets built out, the consumer devices become aware. I mean, the consumer devices become available. So that's about 6 months to a year away. So
How are they estimating what kind of capacity they have to build in? How are you estimating? So the big dongles versus just a small smartphone looking kind of a device rather than, or a feature phone looking kind of device without the dongle sticking out, which makes it cumbersome. How far, you got my question.
I think,
sorry,
yeah,
you
I
should
think,
go and watch the demos now.
yeah.
Probably they're all integrated. We have got both integrated and a dongle sticking out. So maybe you can then change your comment or change your opinion based on what you see right now.
And just to add, see, the point is that, like Parag mentioned, that as engineers they will think of just how it will work. As a consumer facing companies, we will push him that you need to have smaller and smaller and smaller modules. So that's what their job is, and that's where the real innovation is happening. And like he mentioned, that please go and have a look at demos now. It's only the antenna which is out, which again we are pushing that it should go in. So those kind of innovations will happen, and I think it's 6 to 12 months away, while the prototypes are all available. But in 6 to 12 months you should be able to see a good decent device, provided that yes, networks are rolled out and the content is available.
Thank you so much. And thanks, BES, for giving us an opportunity to present what D2M is to the world. And I leave with the promise that if D2M is what it is to the world, broadcasters, you're looking at 1 billion screens in India alone. Thank you so much.
Ladies and gentlemen, the upcoming session titled as Leo Satellites Based Internet for Broadcasting, does it have the potential for changing landscape of live news and sports, will dive deep into the promise of high speed, low latency satellite internet and its implications on broadcast workflows from field reporting to live stadium.
Most of us are aware of the geosatellite era, where we used to set up a track, taking a satellite thing and setting an uplink, setting it up, taking days together to set up this in any remote corner. This scenario is changing fast. And today, fortunately, because of the advanced technology, we have this LEO satellites being launched by multiple vendors, which has cut down one of the key problems in our broadcasting will be the latency. Earlier, when you have the satellite stuff on a real-time basis, we want to do, it used to take close to 600 milliseconds. So with this LEO, now it has come down to 20, 30 milliseconds, drastic reduction. And we have a number of satellites because a geostationary satellite may be a few numbers, whereas in LEO, I think some of the operators are even having close to 6,000 to 7,000 satellites on LEO, which means seamless handovers possible. And the technologies they use phased array antennas, inter-satellite communication, optical technologies, which ensures you have 4K HD quality streamed at almost 20 millisecond latency. Now, whether to ask whether how this is going to really change the scenario of live streaming in sports or live reporting in news, it's going to be a big challenge in in the next few years to come. We have already seen offshoot of this. I think many of you are already aware how these satellites played a vital role, may it be in a war-prone area or even in the urban area. I think many of you are aware in 2022 when there was a rush in London on a broadcasting, it was only one public broadcaster who was able to do a seamless coverage. That was through a LEO. Because when entire networks choke, satellite choke, LEO made it possible to have a real live stream happening. Or may it be in Texas event or in Ireland, a separate sport incidents. All this has been happening. The advantage is it's just imaginable. Suppose you are a lone trekker somewhere in the mountain, you can do a live streaming. Or it could be a event happening, say for example a car race or anything. You can fix on the cameras on the vehicle itself, which will communicate to this LEO and then do a live streaming. So the opportunities of a real news as well as sports or even as a real timer, because India lives in its own villages. We have our own issues. How effectively these technologies could enable these broadcasting services is going to happen. We have a team of very eminent speakers with me today. We have Ravi Gandhi on the right, who is an expert in regulatory and other affairs from the GEO. We have Sivaji Chatterjee from Hughes Communications, who has been doing a lot of work in the broadcasting sphere. And we have Vivek from the SATCOM and semiconductor industry, of course, the Tejas networks. So they will be trying to come up and tell what is happening. I hope the session becomes lively. We now first open up probably with friend Ravi Gandhi to just open up what is happening in Geo. What do you think is a roadmap ahead?
The use of LEO or the advantages of LEO constellations in broadcasting. So when we talk about broadcasting, uh, so there are two elements to it. One is news gathering, which is a two-way communication majorly, and the broadcasting, which is one-way communication. So when we talk about the broadcasting side of it, which is one-way communication, there is not much difference between LEO or GEO, uh, except for the capacity, because LEO comes with very high capacity as compared to GEO, because GEO having the larger footprint with very less frequency reuse would always have lesser capacity as compared to LEO, because of the frequency reuse they can create very large capacity. So you, instead of having the SD channel, you can have 4K 8K channels which can be transmitted. So LEO gives an advantage of increasing the capacity. One-way communication is not impacted by latency too much. Latency is majorly the moment you have two-way communication like voice or internet access, or if you are having any interactive session, then the latency comes into. So basically, the latency part, I'm just trying to divide the issue into on two sides. One side is the broadcast to the consumers, and the other is the video content or news gathering from the places to the studio. So these are, I think, two different problems to handle and to settle. So as far as news gathering is concerned, that's latency sensitive. And today, if you see, majorly the news gathering has started happening on 4G, 5G or terrestrial networks, so which anyway has a very low latency. So geo-based news gathering is extremely costly and not sustainable in long run. So LEO set constellations, LEO mobile networks or LEO fixed networks or LEO-based news gathering would of course provide a lower latency option to f- to the places where the mobile networks are either congested at that particular moment or the coverage is not there. So in those areas, this can be a very good option, even in the covered areas also, because many a time the news gathering also requires a seamless coverage. So you will not be required to change the bearer again and again from mobile to satellite and satellite to mobile. So with the same bearer, you can continuously start using it for news gathering. So we have to see where this whole use case would come in is on the side of interactive side. But as far as the broadcasting side is concerned, now the LEO versus GEO is not much a difference except for the cost, because GEO cost is would be always very high as compared to LEO. Yeah, thank you.
Sivaji from the UX, what we are looking, can you throw more light? What was happening with this VSAT? You did a lot of VSAT is happening. This was also used for broadcasting. How do you think the technology has changed? What new technologies have come? How do you foresee Leo is going to really play its way really in the broadcasting, or still it's a way to?
It's definitely something which is new, for us in Hughes. We are quite new, and I think it's quite clear that the VSAT space was mainly related to telecom and satcom, and the INB world was different. The licensings, the ministries, everything was very different. Within that domain, we did a few things. We did a lot of work on digital cinema, which is distributing movies to all theaters. Uh, 15, 20 years back, movies used to be in reels, and they used to be only released in 200-300 theaters in India. We actually did the revolution of it with two companies, UFO and Cube, where we digitized the movie and distributed to every theater in India, all 8,000 screens, and then let the screens decide with the distributor how many shows to buy. It eliminated piracy in one shot in India, and it transformed. And we still did it on a data content delivery, and it was not a live streaming. And that's why we sort of entered the INB world through this distribution exhibition space. We've done various work for news channels, but that's only setting up DSNG vans, not actually giving the service. And including the Indian Navy, which has 10 vans as part of its network for Spectrum, network, which was set up recently. But if we look at, as has been said, satellite news gathering, this is what, if you say DSNG van, this is the image which comes to the mind. There's a parabolic dish which folds and comes up, and you get, it's a satcom on the pause. You see it outside events even today, and it's using a frequency, generally C or KU band. C band has lesser bandwidth but is rain resistance. KU band is susceptible to some weather, but it's smaller, cheaper, gives more bandwidth. And today, with a lot of the streaming getting more in terms of HD content, this was there. The licensing was through the INB ministry through teleports, and it was less bandwidth. As Ravi said, there was high latency for geo systems, but it was reliable. And still today, I'll say it's still a fallback. Every news channel or DSNG operator has this in their portfolio because this is the fallback safe way. What today is happening, and again, as was spelled out at the start, it's the world where 4G networks and now 5G networks provide bandwidth in tens of megabits, and not just on the receive but on the transmit. And when you bond multiple SIMs across the different telcos, you are able to sort of get a diverse bandwidth which is bonded and pooled, and now it becomes a, tens of megabits service, which is actually going through different eNote B and BTSs. So this is the default way, I'll say, whether it's on the move, on the pause, the way news gathering and contribution is happening. Definitely, the advantage is much lower capex, opex. It gives you a coverage. I think we have the two telcos here. They would say that 98, 99% of the population, and maybe 98, 99% of where you need news is covered, and it's very compact. There's no dish. You can even take it on a backpack. There are disadvantages. When you have now 10 news channels coming to cover an event, all of them with SIMs connecting to the same cell towers, you're going to get congestion for sure. In VIP coverage areas, there are jammers put, and there I don't think they even try to use this solution. And thirdly, when there's an event like there are mudslides happening, landslides happening, cloudbursts happening, North Sikkim, Himachal, Uttarakhand. There are, times the towers are not available in those remote areas, or they also are affected by the calamity. So that's where, the disadvantages are there. But otherwise, I'll say this is the default way. How we've come into this space, and what the topic is today, is the government relaxed the regulation and brought in a concept called electronic news gathering, or ENG, which now permitted anyone giving broadband to basically provide the service. So suddenly us as a satcom broadband provider were able to put a service or a dish and service this industry. So for us, this was the regulatory way to be able to get into this space. Definitely, as VSAT providers who have more than 250,000 installations in India, we've been successful across a plethora of industry, but not yet addressed this industry. So it opened the doors. And what was good is the timing of this opening of the regulation was perfectly timed to the coming of Leo networks, as our moderator very well described. It's exciting, it's new, and it's global. So that is something which, when you buy an Apple phone or a Samsung phone, it is the same phone you get anywhere in the world. That ubiquity is what has made satellite popular. It's like in a DTH service, anywhere you go, you'll get the same experience. That can only happen with satellite. It cannot happen with terrestrial or wireless for the most part. But what Leo gives is a global network very close to the Earth, 600 to 1200 kilometers from the Earth, compared to 36,000 kilometers, which a geostationary satellite is. And along with that, a complete manageability and a service. So suddenly you have a satellite system which is not so far in the sky. It's still much further than your cell tower, but it is not too far away. And the latency, which was a ping of 600 to 800 milliseconds, we are now talking of 40 to 60 milliseconds. So when you're talking of a ping of 40 to 60 milliseconds, that's the ping you will get on most wireless or terrestrial networks on the access side of things. So very good. The other big advantage, when your satellite is so close to the Earth, your dish can be much smaller, right? So your dish can actually be, it's like having a cell phone tower closer to you. Your phones, the antennas which were there now can be much more smaller and compact. So what you have is you have high speeds, you have a managed service, you have low latency, and you have small dishes. So that's it sort of ticks all the boxes for SATCOM. It's definitely still, I'll say, more expensive than a handset of cellular or the service. But for SATCOM, it seems to be the cutting edge. And if you look at this, this is actually a setup right here. If you go outside the door in front, you will see this van parked. It's live, it's got a terminal, it's streaming on YouTube, a live camera set up there. And this is not just a concept somewhere, it's something which is live and working. And there are actually customers, and I'll talk about it. So it actually complements, gives you all the benefits, and of course, it's a service you can use. So it complements the multi SIM approach which is being used today. It's probably going to replace the geo way of doing DSNG, but it's going to complement the way a multi 4G, 5G services. This is the picture, as you all know, outside Hall 10, and this is the van which is parked. On top of it is the dish. That's the compact dish. It's flat. It doesn't need to come up. It works on electronically steerable antenna, and it's absolutely flat. It works not just on the pause, and that's unique compared to your DSNG Geo. It works on the move. It can work all the time. There are different types of bandwidth models, and I'm sure the news operators and DSNG operators know this better, on a committed or variable bandwidth rates based on what kind of content they are seeking to do. And definitely, this is a very good, I'll say, solution which can have tremendous benefit for the industry, because the one thing about live news gathering, it's real time. When we see today, when there's a latency in the communication, sometimes when there's an anchor in a remote site, we can make out, and they're waiting for the question. So my last slide, I'll say this is, as was said at the beginning, deployed everywhere around the world. These are actual pictures. You can look at this. This is a Starlink Leo terminal. It's on a backpack. You can just open it, and it's behind the cameraman's back, and it's actually doing a live transmission just by being on the backpack. I think Mr. Ravi also mentioned it. You can go trek anywhere, and that's all you need. It's live, and it actually gives you a real service. So that's what I had to say. Thank you.
It's very interesting times today. We are in the world of convergence now. So telco operators and equipment providers, and then the satellite section devoted to satellite, and in a broadcast expo. So that's kind of the convergence era that we are in. The With every passing day, the lines are blurring basically between the telco world, the cellular world, the broadband world, the satcom world, and the broadcast world. So I just wanted to start beginning by giving you a quick overview about how this overall satellite industry, global industry looks like. So it's estimated to be about $400 billion industry now. I think over the last 2 years, this is a 2023 data. Over the last 2 years, the numbers would have definitely improved. But this just gives an overall essence of where the pie is and where India should focus its, given the size that we as a country are, and also the population. We are now by far the largest population in the world. So this will put things in perspective. If you see, there is satellite services, there is ground equipment, there is satellite manufacturing, and there is also the launch industry. In that, the major pie is basically about $150 billion. Now that comes from the ground equipment. Now with the leos coming in, I think you will see a much more, because of the number of devices that these leo networks will carry on them. So this pie is definitely going to go grow big, and it's an opportunity for companies like us who have been on the equipment side of it, on the on the solution side of it. So if you see overall globally, there are, like, I think my co-panelists already spoke about, there are a lot of trends that are taking place in the industry. One of them, like Chairman Sir said, that basically direct to device is the next big thing, since Apple launched the emergency communication service in iPhone 14. Since then, it has become a wow factor to have it all in the mobile phones. Of course, like he also spoke about SOS, emergency servicing, and all. Now that is one. The other upcoming industry is the connected cars, aerospace, defense, maritime have all been there, which are being serviced on the geos as well. But this is going to change the landscape. Why is this changing? Because of evolution of newer constellations. Earlier we were only geo, now we have MEO and LEO. Like one of the co-panelists said that the LEO is just about 300 to 500 kilometers away from Earth. So that means very different dynamics in terms of the device ecosystem.
And with the advent of all these new greenfield players, they don't come from the Satcom world baggage like the Starlinks, the Amazons, the Amazon Kuiper and AST Mobile and all. They are coming with very very disruptive business models, solutions, services, and everything. So this is going to change, and of course the high throughput satellites and software defined satellites and all. Now, one of the things that is changing the whole industry is basically satellite until now was a very proprietary driven standards and regimes. But now going forward, we are moving towards a standardized regime, more on the sides of the telcos like the 3GPP regime. So you have this NRNTN and all coming, which will enable integration of what Sir asked about. How do you get it into devices without having to change the device itself? And there is also now globally harmonization of bands, especially the there is a typo there, it's L and S bands. So basically the L and S bands globally have been harmonized now, so you can have a roaming service across L and S bands anywhere in the globe. Earlier they were quite fragmented based on whom you are dealing with, and now there is global coverage also happening for these alliances. And also now, I think going forward, you will see telcos acquiring the SATCOM capabilities, and SATCOM, meaning there is a good example here. Geo has also announced partnership with satellite operators. So basically, you will have kind of a synergies going between the telcos and the SATCOM and vice versa. Uh, I'll talk about a solution a little later, but basically, we kind of provide all the solutions in terms of the hub side infrastructure, the G Node B part of it, the remote user terminals, the broadband modems, MSS terminals, phased array antennas, chipsets, SAT IoT models, and all of that. So these are, I think, we already touched upon this, so I'll not spend too much time on what the applications are. Meaning, one of the applications, the focus of this particular event is basically on news gathering and on broadcast. Before I get into this, on the news gathering, I think like they emphasize the latency is the biggest element, and the portability is also an important element. So you can have a man portable equipment devices where you can pretty much connect in underserved areas or remote areas where you can have live reporting. And as far as broadcasting is concerned, I think one of the key elements today with all this climate change happening, you need to have a mechanism of broadcast to all the devices. So one of the key elements I think is how do you utilize the satellite infrastructure to send emergency messages, warnings, climate change messages to the entire globe in one go. And satellite Wi-Fi, I think, is one of the best mechanisms to deliver that, because whenever natural calamities strike, the first casualties are always the telecom networks. They get uprooted, there is lack of service and all. So in those situations, the broadcast element becomes one of the very very critical elements. Now the other standard stuff, the railways, cargos, maritime, aerospace, all of those things still continue, and we are seeing now omnipresent connectivity. Like one of the co-panelists said, that you will have live television inside the planes coming via satellite. Likewise, we are moving towards a regime of connected cars where you will need to have omnipresent connectivity. I think that is also, cannot be served by terrestrial networks, because terrestrial networks are just focused on having in the areas where their ARPUs are better. The satellite by design kind of gives omnipresent connectivity. And then like we spoke about disaster management, that I think satellite is by far the best for all the disaster management situations, and also some critical assets like your nuclear thermal installations and all. And agriculture is one of the biggest things. We are an agrarian economy, so I think that becomes a very important thing for India. And we have seen in COVID, people didn't have connectivity for either lack of connectivity or lack of resources to afford internet, and education kind of becomes a very vital thing for countries like India and down south. What are the challenges now? I think one of the, if it has to proliferate on large scale like the way it has happened in the telco, one is the 3GPP regime standardization will have more players, more chipsets, more solution providers, so that will bring in a lot of a lot of cost economics of scale into play. But cost of equipment is definitely a barrier that we need to breach, and each of the economies have different affordability metrics. Cost of service also is a very important step. While it kind of solves a lot of your problems, but also at what cost is the question. So that becomes a challenge. And then since we are talking about IoT devices, form factor is very, very, very critical, and also the power consumption. And today, in the telcos, it is basically a regime where you bid for the spectrum, get that. But here it is on assignment basis. So we shouldn't end up in a scenario where there is monopoly of services. So there has to be, because the bandwidth for L and S bands is very very limited for narrowband applications, and of course data security will become very very vital. Now, we spoke about how does this apply in real life scenario. So this is just a slide on what we have done in India. So we have deployed the sat IoT network for Indian Railways. So the every train today has this satellite equipment on its electro locomotives, and it is tracked on real time basis. So every train today is on 30-second interval basis. You get, it's like your Ola, Uber, you're capturing the data on real time basis. So whenever you use an app and you see spot your train or those kind of apps, actually the data is coming via satellite. The second one is we are also deploying the largest sat IoT network globally for coastal security and fishermen safety. As we speak, we are deploying it on about 50,000 boats for coastal security. And just 2 more minutes. And the point that sir made about the sat phone. So we back in 2018 had developed a companion device for an Android phone, where your existing Android phone can be converted into a satellite phone. So this was operating on an ISRO's strategic asset, and it is being used by a strategic user. So this basically, you use your existing Android phone and then communicate via satellite using this phone. So that's an S-band phone, and we have done all the solutions in partnership with ISRO, of course. Now, this basically brings me to the last slide. Uh, what is it for India? Basically, I think the made in India, again, there is a typo here. So pardon me for that. So the solution, whatever that solution or service that we are rendering into in India, also have to have wholesome benefits for the country, both in terms of affordable services, also in terms of ecosystem development. The policy regulation should provide impetus to the Indian industry, so that we can encourage design, development and manufacturing, and also provide collaborative market access. It shouldn't be just like what happened in the set-top box industry, that all the set-top boxes came from China and we just deployed it. So we need to have some kind of a self-reliance in the satcom space, so that we safeguard our national interest. And also there are situations today we have seen globally where there is denial of service and also trade embargoes. To protect that, I think Atmanirbharta has to be the fulcrum of all the solutions. I mean, all the policies that we take forward, going forward. And I think it's interesting times, and we have a very very prospective world in the satcom space, especially Leo, going forward. Thank you so much. Just to show you, this is a satellite broadcast receiver. You can stick it into any of your phones, laptops, tablets, anything. We can change this from a standard USB A to USB Type C device, and you can receive it. So your phone becomes your host system, and you can have a full-fledged multimedia reception on this one. So it can get as small as this. And the earlier session talked about the D2M. So we can incorporate this in the phone itself, where you can have a complete satellite reception. And this is powered by our own indigenous SDR chipset. So it can get as attractive as this one.
Do you think there is going to be some regulatory challenges there? Do you think how are we going to overcome, especially in terms of security? And now these geos, we are also talking about what we call a 360 degrees helicopter streaming. Put an helicopter streaming at a 360. So it is more and more becoming open about what is happening at the ground level. Do you think where are our regulatory challenges and what cautious requirement need to be done?
Which I see is all of us understanding the convergence which is happening. So if we see the old days, there used to be a broadcast network which was totally separate network till the consumer end, consumer device. Uh, there was a telecom network which was totally different, terrestrial telecom network, and a satellite network which was completely different. Where we will finally reach, so we may not be there today, but in coming years, where we will be, we'll have a common network which will, with the common device, you can access the terrestrial network. With the same device, you can access the satellite network. And on the same device, you can have telecommunication service, which is voice, internet, data, as well as the broadcast service riding on that same telecom network. So there won't be any separate line or separate access network for broadcasting. So broadcasting will ride over the telecom network. So that is the final state which I see coming in next few years. That's how the technology is moving. Why we don't have today? Because today we are evolving towards that. So how this evolution is happening? GSO satellites, which were primarily meant for VSAT kind of VPN networks, etc., now are also providing MSS services. Since the capacity is low, so this is typically being used for, say, emergency services, because you can't watch YouTube on a MSS network using GSO satellite because the capacity would not be there. So that's how it is limited. With LEO network, uh, on the because in the MSS band the spectrum is very less, so it's very difficult to create enormous capacities where you can start watching YouTube or even the linear channels through OTT, etc. When you move towards the FSS side, which we call fixed satellite service, it was typically meant for the fixed devices, because the difference between MSS and fixed FSS is basically the way user terminal communicate with the satellite. If you have a omni antenna like this, it has to be MSS, because this it transmit in all direction. And in FSS, the antenna would be typically directional and would be pointing towards the satellite. So many users can be pointing towards different satellites and share the spectrum. But how that FSS is getting mobile is by the way of flat panel, which Shivaji showed. Instead of having the directional parabolic antennas, now we have flat panel antennas, electronic beam steering, not only on the user device but on the satellite side also. The moment you have that within the FSS, you actually get mobility. It may not be full mobility the way these devices are, but because the flat panel antennas are bigger, this is how the technology is evolving. Once the technology evolves, the fixed services are moving towards mobile services are moving towards fixed, and the broadcasting is riding over the telecom. So once this conversion happens, the regulatory convergence also has to happen. So this is probably which I see would be the government's next challenge, to adopt the regulations, keeping in mind the convergence which is going to happen because of technology, evolution of technology. Thank you.
The LEO satellite based way of the technology being used for broadcasting is going to really change the way how broadcasting will evolve. We are moving into a scenario where even say probably we have some sort of common application platforms being developed with different data center sitting at the various edges, where even a remote a person trekking or a villagers or anywhere we go in the country, we'll be able to get real-time feeds into this network and it could be broadcasted across. We are looking at such scenarios where a lone trekker gets information, or a sports event happening in a desert has a 360-degree view of what is happening. This type of reality is becoming a reality as we go forward. I thank my co-panelists for enlightening the audiences, and thank you for the organizers for achieving it. Thank you.